Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the First Unitarian Society of Milwaukee's online worship service on this beautiful spring morning in Milwaukee. I'm Reverend Jennifer Nordstrom, and I'm honored to serve as First Unitarian Society of Milwaukee's senior minister. We welcome people of all genders, sexualities, ages, races, ethnicities, histories, and bodies. We welcome your mind, your heart, and your spirit. We welcome all you're bringing with you today and all your heart longs to set down. We offer all ages religious education every Sunday at 10 a.m. and youth group at 1 p.m. online. You can find the link to join in your religious education weekly updates. Sign up for that update to find out more about religious education for children, as well as family ministry, including ways to connect with our families and our faith and our community every week. Join us for a virtual coffee hour this morning after service today at either 10 a.m. or 12 p.m., where we will chat in small groups on video conference. You can find the Zoom meeting link in the live stream chat right now or in your Friday e-announcements. Remember that the password is UUMKE, all lowercase. Members, guests, and visitors are all welcome. Just bring your own coffee. Our First Church annual meeting will be held online on Sunday, May 17th at 12:45 p.m. using the video conferencing program Zoom. In addition to the election of members of the Board of Trustees and the nominating committee, we will also hear about the financial condition of First Church and, importantly, vote on whether to ordain Kimberly Tomjack Carlson. Please be sure to register in advance so we can prepare to use the conferencing service and get our online voting mechanism ready. There will be options to join by telephone when you register if that's necessary for you, and there will be support for you getting online or on the phone to join the meeting. Our Sunday forum is on Zoom today at 10:10 a.m. with our presenter, Virginia Small, who's a freelance journalist, landscape history researcher, and author, sharing Olmsted's green legacies, their value to Milwaukee. You can find the link to join in your live chat now or in your Friday announcements. Join our virtual Journey to Membership classes. This online format might be perfect for those who just could never fit those membership classes in. Led by our ministers, our staff, and our lay leaders, this class is a prerequisite to membership, but you're not required to join in order to attend the class. Classes will be held the 4 Wednesdays in May, beginning this Wednesday, May 6th, going through May 27th, from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. You can find the link to sign up in your live chat, or you can email First Church Membership Coordinator Lynn Jacoby for more information. Once again, I welcome you into our online worship service today by inviting you to repeat our mission after me. We gather to nurture the spirit, engage the mind, and inspire action. Our opening words today are the poem Carrie by Billy Collins. I want to carry you, and for you to carry me, the way that voices are said to carry over the water. Just this morning on the shore, I could hear two people talking quietly in a rowboat on the far side of the lake. They were talking about fishing, and then one changed the subject. And I swear, they began talking about you. Now let's return to our beloved sanctuary as a touchstone where I will light our flaming chalice, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism. It's a strange thing to be in the middle of a global pandemic during a beautiful spring day, but here we are. That's part of living our lives. Because of the unprecedented times in which we're living and the ways that all of our lives are being touched by the grief and the loss of this global coronavirus pandemic, we're continuing our new practice for the pandemic called the COVID candle. As of this morning, we've counted 67,067 deaths from COVID-19 in the United States. Even more, there are people grieving the death of a loved one at this time who cannot gather with their families to mourn. Therefore, during this unique time when people are prevented from gathering with their family and their community to mourn deaths, we're expanding the purpose of the COVID candle to include any death of a loved one of any of our members. So if you've had a loved one die from coronavirus or from another cause during this time and would like the COVID candle lit for them during Sunday worship, contact one of the ministers. This Sunday, we honor 3 deaths of members' loved ones. Lewis Howard, great uncle of Cherie Taylor, died from COVID-19 on March 26th in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He was 85 years old. Genevieve Reff, great aunt of Cherie Taylor, died from COVID-19 on April 3rd in New Orleans, Louisiana. She was 84 years old. Michael Jerome Kaputska, younger brother of Kristen McNally, died unexpectedly at home in Nebraska on April 15th, 2020. He was 47 years old. While the cause of death is not known, it's likely that it was a heart attack or a stroke. It is our pandemic practice to light our COVID candle to honor the lives and the deaths of members' loved ones during the COVID-19 pandemic. Thus today, we light our candle in honor of Lewis Howard, Genevieve Reff, and Michael Jerome Kaputska. As we enter a time of meditation, followed by silence, followed by the seated singing of Spirit of Life, just take a moment to get comfortable in your body wherever you are right now. Maybe that means feeling your sit bones grounding you, or your vertebrae stacking one on top of the next. Maybe it means feeling the top of your head connected to all that is. Maybe it means feeling your breath moving in and out of your body and bringing you into being here and now. Spirit of life and love, Holy One of our being and our becoming, that which is sacred within, among, and beyond us. Carry us, even as we carry one another across thresholds, in love and in life and in time. Through all of these changes in the world, may we be present to one another, passing through doorways of the heart and of life and of death. May we pause when passing through a doorway and bow to center ourselves every time we move from the secular to the sacred and back again. May it be so. Now let's return to our beloved sanctuary where the singing bowl will frame our shared silence, and then we can sing Spirit of Life.
Good morning. My name is Dale Skaggs, and I'm happy to serve as worship associate today. The last time I served as worship associate was the 8th of March, and I remember that day well because it was the last time that we gathered together to worship in our beautiful First Church sanctuary. When I stood in the pulpit that day and welcomed you to the service, we didn't know we were standing on the threshold of a remarkable and difficult time. We didn't know that the entire world would be challenged and changed by the coronavirus pandemic. And we didn't know that our congregation was about to face the daunting challenge of learning how to do church in a whole new way. And I didn't know that my lifelong running battle with depression was about to flare up in a big way. In the following days, as we canceled all in-person church activities, I followed the news of the pandemic, and I worried for the most vulnerable members of my family and our church community. It felt like our old world was about to end, like we were falling into a new and dangerous world. I knew I would miss the community and connection of church in our sanctuary, that I would miss the physical presence of friends and family. Many plans had to be abandoned, and I felt frozen in place, unable to make new ones. So I had some hard days, wondering what in the world to do when it feels like the world is ending. And I fell more deeply into depression. But as I said, that's been a lifelong struggle, so I've learned a couple of things which help me climb out. One is to stay with routine. Another is to find inspiration every day. That's one reason I regularly go to church. I often find inspiration there that recalls me to my better self. Another habit is to wake early and go out walking. I like to stand by the water at Veterans Park Lagoon and ease myself over the threshold of a new day as the sun eases over the horizon. Sometimes I will try to make a plan for the day, but I'm often reminded of what author E.B. White said about such plans. I arise in the morning, he said, torn between a desire to improve the world and a desire to enjoy the world. This makes it hard to plan the day. So sometimes I don't plan, I just pray, which means I just try to breathe slow and be still, with eyes wide open to the light that always comes. And sometimes, if I'm lucky, I pray myself over the thresholds of worry and doubt and fear into a much brighter day. And that's a pretty powerful antidepressant. A couple of weeks ago, I was down by the lagoon at sunrise, and the world showed me a new way of seeing. I noticed the willow branches framed a nice view of the water, and the thought popped into my head that every threshold in every building has a frame around it, and so do the inner thresholds of mind and spirit. A building's thresholds are framed with wood, but our inner thresholds are framed with words. I realized I had been looking at the future over a threshold framed by the words fear and doubt and worry, and I realized that when my morning rituals lifted me into a better day, they had built a frame using words like hope and joy and gratitude. A few days later, I read Wendell Berry's account of a conversation he had with Thomas Merton. He asked Merton, if the Shakers were so certain the world could end at any minute, how come they built the best building in Kentucky? Merton replied, you don't understand. If you know the world could end at any minute, you know there's no need to hurry. You take your time and do the best work you possibly can. Rejecting despair over the state of the world, Berry went on to say this, the otters and the swallows, a lot of their life is just spent having a hell of a good time. The animals, so far as I can understand them, have a great deal to say in favor of life. It's a good world still. Well, today my battle isn't over, but I think I'm winning it. Our battle with the coronavirus pandemic isn't over, but I think we'll win it. And we're all still learning new ways of doing church, but I'm convinced that if we remember there's no need to hurry, and if we do the best work we can, we'll frame the threshold to our future world with joy and hope and gratitude. Then we'll step over that threshold with easy hearts, knowing it's a good world still. May it be so.
Mhm. Thank you so much to Yuri Yamamoto for that rendition of Michinoku, My Home. It was just beautiful. Perfect for this day when we're considering homes and thresholds. The word threshold, which is our theme for the month of May, comes from that strip of wood in a doorway that was originally designed to hold the straw floor of a house, the thresh, inside. Today, when we consider thresholds, we might think about all the ways that doorways hold meaning, doorways to our homes, our hearts, doorways to new realities. This spring, even though we cross the threshold of our home to go out into a beautiful spring day in Wisconsin, we might also consider that we've crossed a threshold into the new world of living with coronavirus. Living with coronavirus means many different things in each of our lives, and we're just learning the parameters of this new world. Some people are longing to go back to normal, while others are hoping that during this time we change for the better. Last week, I shared a quotation mistakenly attributed to Brené Brown, when it was actually the author Sonia Renee Taylor who said, "Normal never was." Our pre-corona existence was not normal, other than that we normalized greed and inequity and exhaustion and depletion and extraction and disconnection, hoarding, hate, and lack. We should not long to return to that, my friends. We're being given the opportunity to stitch a new garment, one that fits all of humanity and nature. This new world of coronavirus includes massive and traumatic losses, however. So even though I shared that quote last week, I want to honor that longing for the old world might only mean longing for a world without these massive losses. Among our own members, people have lost jobs, income security, graduations, birthdays, and human connection. Some folks were expecting experiences of threshold crossing this month that will not happen in the ways they had planned. Loved ones will not be gathering to witness graduates cross a stage and receive a diploma. Weddings have been postponed or moved online. Pregnant mothers are having a very different kind of experience of preparing to welcome their babies into the world. And some of our members have lost loved ones, as well as the ability to gather to grieve their deaths. These losses are significant, and it's important for us to make time to grieve them. But in addition to our personal losses, we've also collectively crossed a threshold of loss. We have now lost more lives to COVID-19 in 3 months than the US lost in the Vietnam War. Healthcare workers are on the front lines of grief and of exposure to coronavirus. Each day that they go to work, our healthcare workers pass through the threshold into the front lines. Mariah Clark, an emergency department nurse at the University Hospital in Madison, said, "My fellow healthcare workers will pull through and we'll do whatever we need to do to care for our patients because we're committed to our patients and to fighting for them to get the care that they deserve and need." That hasn't changed. What has changed is that now we're doing it without the critical personal protective equipment and supplies and support that we need. Every day we're asked to come in and work and put on the same mask we've been wearing for days or even weeks. When our shifts are over, We spend an hour painstakingly disinfecting everything we might have touched, every piece of clothing, every shoe, door handle, our cars. And when we get home, the first thing we do when we walk in the door is take a shower to wash anything that we've missed. There's a threshold between the larger new world of coronavirus that we all crossed into this spring and the hospitals that are battling the worst cases of it. It's like our larger experience gets concentrated when it goes through that hospital threshold. At the entrance to a Japanese Shinto shrine, you pass through what's called a torii gate to mark the passage from one world into another. As you move in towards the shrine, you're moving from the secular world into sacred space. And when you do that, you're supposed to bow to center yourself as you move into the sacred. In Japanese Shinto shrines, there are sometimes multiple gates on the way in. And each time you pass through another gate, you're moving into a more concentrated sense of sacred space than the space you were previously in. I do not believe that this virus is sacred or that there is any divine plan to harm so many people. When I read the descriptions of the overburdened and death-laden COVID-19 wards of hospitals, they sound more like a description of hell than of sacred space. Our healthcare workers and our COVID-19 patients are there, though, together in the doorway between life and death. My friend and colleague, the Reverend Catherine Graybuck, serves as a chaplain at Harborview Medical Center in Seattle. And she was interviewed by the New York Times last week. And she told them, "My work usually brings me close to the end of life and to death, but this is a whole new era. We are walking in the valley of the shadow of death along with our patients and their families. That valley is a terrifying place to serve, and yet many people are choosing to do it, choosing to serve the folks who are in need. Healthcare workers have been traveling to the COVID-19 battleground of New York City by the hundreds to relieve the pressure on the hospital systems there. Over 500 nurses from almost every state in the country have gone to New York to help. Tamra Williams, a 40-year-old nurse from Dallas, was quoted in an April 28th article in the New York Times about nurses serving in New York as saying that after watching a TV report about overwhelmed New York City hospitals, her conscience wouldn't let her stay home. So even though some members of her family did not want her to go, she said goodbye to her 8-month-old baby and to her husband, and she traveled to New York to serve. Julianne Nicole, a New York City nurse, wrote on Facebook on April 24th, quote, "The travel nurses who rushed into this burning building to help us are easing our healthcare system. The first travel nurse I met came all the way from Texas. Others terminated their steady employment to enlist with a travel agency in order to help us. Every day there are more travelers arriving. A nurse from LA came to me after she found out that I was part of the home staff and said, I came here for you, for all of the nurses, because I couldn't imagine working the way that you guys were working for how long you were working in these conditions. The 500 nurses who traveled to New York allowed the home system nurses to rotate out, to have some days off and rest in the midst of the grueling care of caring for patients with coronavirus in such an overburdened system. This virus is not sacred, but the way we treat one another during the time of the virus is sacred. The work our healthcare providers are doing to save people's lives is sacred. And the way that they're taking care of one another in the struggle to do that is sacred. Similarly, the US deaths of over 67,000 people is not divine, but the doorway between life and death is divine, because a human life is sacred in its being born and in its living and in its dying. This virus has changed the way that we're able to respond and to honor that doorway, though. Because the virus makes it unsafe for people to be with their dying loved one, people are not able to say goodbye in person, which is just a devastating loss. Serving in this active yet fundamentally changed doorway between life and death will take its toll on the people who serve, our healthcare workers, our chaplains. As a society, we will need to attend to the harm that is caused by the trauma of this work. Like with veterans who return home from war, we cannot just celebrate them as heroes and be done with it. We need to commit ourselves to our healthcare providers' health and well-being, commit ourselves to their healing and to their trauma for years to come. That is the debt that we owe them as a society. There is a group of people assigned to the spiritual and emotional care of our healthcare workers and patients and their families right now. And that's hospital chaplains. When the Reverend Leah Klug, who's a hospital chaplain for the Swedish medical group in the Seattle area, goes into work, she tells her 6 and 7-year-old children, it's mommy's turn to be a helper. One day, she distributed pocket-sized photos of Fred Rogers from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood to the nurses and the doctors at the hospitals, recalling Fred Rogers' admonition to children to look for the helpers. The chaplains are also finding new ways to help families connect with their loved ones when they're in that threshold between life and death. New ways to honor a life and to mark that threshold as sacred. New ways for us to bow, to center ourselves, and then come in. Caitlin Butler, who's a chaplain at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York City, told Time magazine, I've held phones outside of patients' rooms so their families can speak to them. Sometimes families just want me to go up and put a hand on the door and pray for the person inside. While she's doing innovative work to find ways for families to connect with their loved one in that threshold, Reverend Klug told the New York Times that she prays for the families and the loved ones in the way that she always has prayed for them. She said that her prayers for the dying are the same that they've always been. She prays that they know that they are loved, that they know that they're not forgotten, that they know that their lives are meaningful and that their lives will be remembered. This season of thresholds holds too many passages between the doorway of life and death. But even in a season of suffering, there are still joyous crossings to be celebrated. Something as simple as going out the door of your own home and into this beautiful day and smelling the spring that has finally come. Celebrating that graduation that has been hard earned and is still here. The births of new babies that are still regular and still beautiful. And there are times when people who are hovering in the coronavirus threshold pass back out of it and return to the land of the living. At Jacobi Medical Center in the Bronx, every time an intubated patient gets well enough to be extubated, the hospital plays the pop hit Fight Song by Rachel Platten over the loudspeaker. And my friends, if you don't know this song, YouTube it after the service and dance around in your living room a little bit. The chorus of that song is, "This is my fight song, my take back my life song, my prove I'm all right song, because I've still got a lot of fight left in me." Nurse Shamika Duggar, a mother of 6 who traveled from Fort Valley, Georgia to serve at that Bronx hospital, said that every time she hears that song, she's overcome by an awesome feeling that just makes her cry. Ms. Duggar told the New York Times she feels it's her duty to stay in New York and serve until this is over. Her kids call her a unicorn superhero, a title that she said she'll stick with. Wherever you are, whatever thresholds are showing up in your life this May, whether they are joyous or grief-laden or both, remember you are not alone. Reach out and connect with other people. If you're feeling full and capable, reach out to someone else and let them know you care for them and you're there for them. And if you're struggling, look for the helpers. There are so many helpers out there, everyday unicorn superheroes. On Friday, April 24th, Rhode Island nurse Taylor Campbell posted on Facebook about her last day serving in the Metropolitan Hospital of New York City. On that day, one of Taylor's patients had improved enough to be extubated. For the entire 15 days that Taylor had been caring for this woman, the patient had been on a ventilator. Taylor would talk to her every day, and recently the woman had started squeezing Taylor's hand during her visits. Taylor held her hand through the extubation, and when the woman was finally free of the ventilator and could speak again for the first time, she mouthed to Taylor, "I love you." The young traveling nurse started to weep. She went home to Rhode Island the next day, believing that she had fulfilled her purpose in New York City by saving that woman's life. When she arrived at home, her whole family was waiting for her, standing 6 feet apart outside, cheering her and welcoming her as she crossed the threshold home. Another day, another doorway. Joy and grief mixed together, gratitude and loss woven fine. This is our life during coronavirus. This is our life all the time. Thresholds twinning together the truths of love and impermanence. May we be present for and honor all of it. May it be so. Now let's listen to our Dale Skaggs invite our generosity.
Good morning. We know this coronavirus pandemic is affecting our members in many different ways, but for those of us who are able to give right now, it is more important than ever to share our resources with people who have been harder hit by the pandemic. Our church supports members and friends of our congregation spiritually, emotionally, and materially, and supports people in Milwaukee through our relationships with our community partners. Your pledges are the foundation of our congregation and the core of our spiritual practice of generosity. In addition, we are grateful for non-pledge gifts from folks who appreciate our online ministry and are benefiting from it. We also have a special fund for people who need financial support called the Minister's Discretionary Fund. You can give to the church by texting 73256 with the message "Give to UU $." The word "give," the number 2, UU $. Follow the prompts and choose pledge payment, non-pledge gift, or minister's discretionary. You can also give to First Church by going to our web-based giving link, onrealm.org/FUSM/give/First Church. You can see both these options on your screen. We also encourage you to give directly to our community partners. You can find a list of their needs on our website at uumilwaukee.org/support-Milwaukeeans-COVID-19. That link should be on your screen as well. Today, we're highlighting the work of the Interchange Food Pantry, which feeds people from all over Milwaukee. To give to Interchange, go to the GoFundMe page at the link on your screen, or you can go to gofundme.com and search for Interchange Food Pantry. All of your offerings to our community partners and to First Church will be gratefully received. And now, as always, but especially at this time when our interdependence is so evident, thank you for your generosity.
Thank you so much to our choir director, Tristan Strelitzer, for that lovely rendition of O Life That Maketh All Things New. For truly, that life is making all things new this morning and today as the spring greets us with stunning beauty. My dear ones, whatever thresholds you cross this day, may you be present to beauty and to grief as it comes. Be a unicorn superhero or look for the helpers, but know you are not alone. May it be so, and amen. Now let's return to our sanctuary to extinguish the chalice and then listen to our postlude, which is a duo for clarinet and saxophone with our own Patrick Patterson on the clarinet and Tristan Strelitzer on the saxophone. We'll see you next Sunday.